we've got a quorum. Our first orders of business is to accept the minutes of our June 18th regular meeting. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, Harry. Next up, approved minutes of June 20th special select board meeting. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Thank you to those that made that happen. Visitor comments. I think that Harriet is here to talk about something for the energy committee.
Yes, I just wanted to let this, gave to Carrie, and I think she circulated around, a summary for the select board. The energy committee wants to apply again for a grant from the Department of Energy called the ETIP program, which stands for Energy Technology Innovation Partnership Project. Now, we did this, some of you may remember, about 3 years ago, and what it involved was to do a study of the island's total energy needs and it made some recommendations about things the island could do in terms of improving energy sufficiency and self-reliance, including the idea of creating microgrids and making the island, more self-sufficient, if not totally self-sufficient, but the next steps really involve doing, getting experts to do detailed engineering plans, identify sites where things would go. And in order to get the next sort of level of funding, we really need to get that kind of technical expertise. And that's what this next round would supply, would be a detailed, in-depth study to create, a detailed plan that would then presumably help us to get funding for actual implementation. And in the meantime, we would, as we go along, be presenting to the community what's being proposed so that people would have an opportunity. You may remember we applied for a grant. It was sort of a long shot we did last summer. And actually, as part of that grant application, we identified, I think, as many as 14 property owners who were willing to put solar arrays on their land to be part of this, but that grant didn't go through. It's been kind of a tough environment for that. In any case, we will be looking for a letter of support from the select board, which we will help draft. There's actually a form, and the application is due July 27th. So I just want to know, first of all, anybody have any questions, any concerns, etc.
Is there a town match?
There's no matching fund on this one, no. So it's provides technical assistance from the Department of Energy National Laboratory, as well as $50,000 for spending in the community, and that would have to be outlined in the grant what that would be for. And they actually require, it's not exactly like a prize where you just get the money. You have to identify what you're going to accomplish, and as you accomplish certain things, that. Any other comments, questions?
I think it sounds great. Our next meeting and last one before the 27th is 2 weeks from now on the 16th, so if it makes sense to have a draft for us ahead of that meeting, then we could sign it then, if that makes
Yeah, I
sense.
think we can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great,
Great.
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry, is there anybody else here in person or virtually that wants to speak to something that's not already on the agenda? Hearing none. Ferry service update. Peter Wilcox is in the house.
I'm reporting on the meeting, the ferry service advisory board meeting that happened in Rockland on the 2nd of July. I consider this a good meeting, no threats or anger. That's different.
Right. No, that sounds like a good positive step.
There's an annual report due in mid-August, and I will certainly need input for that. Question the financial subcommittee had about the health insurance. It was noted that this agreement was set by the state and the ferry service does not contract for it, so we didn't get an answer on that. The request of the financial subcommittee was asking for a breakdown of the Seaward expenses. Seaward is the company that supplied us with crew to operate the boats last summer and fall when we were experiencing crew shortages. We know what we spent, but not how it was spent. How much did we spend for flights and accommodations? Bill Geary said he would give us the breakdown. The thought was mentioned that to judge Seaward, we should look at the cancellation costs of not running a ferry instead of just the extra expenses. This is obviously the ferry service side of it. It should be noted that while we stopped using Seaward last December, they are on contract to be available if we need them again. According to Gary, we spend nothing for this and it's just keeping our foot in the door. I will point out that Dan did some research and found two payments to the ferries, from the ferry service to Seaward in January and February, totaling $500,000. Now, I think those are for services rendered in the past. But I've put that question to Bill Geary today and expect an answer. I will let you know as soon as I know.
Can I ask, in the past, like, couple months or,
Well, these two payments were made in January and February.
so they would theoretically be November, December invoices or something?
I believe so. I think that's what it is. Not. There was an error in the last newspaper in which said the ferry service had contracted Seaward for 5 years for $1 million. And that seems to be wrong. That was in my story. It was added by someone else and I'm tracking that down. But at least at the moment, it looks to me like that was not the case. But these two payments in January and February brought that issue up. The fiscal year closes July 15th. Now, the issue of taller vehicles.
Brian, can we just, before we.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Maybe this issue. So they're not using this labor source anymore.
No, it's my understanding, and this was confirmed by Gary at this last meeting a few days ago. That we stopped using Seaward about December 9th.
And what are we doing instead?
Well,
They have their
The
own
May
staffing now.
the May State Ferry Service has hired extra people. So that they can guarantee the ferry service will run and operate. They do have a bunch of people coming off. I mean, it's,
And are they mostly domiciled on?
yeah, probably. Yeah, I think anybody on the island that wants to work probably has a job there.
Yeah,
Frankly, many people don't want to do the drug test. And you have to pass the drug test to work on the ferries. And that's a Coast Guard regulation. It's gonna take a monumental effort to get that changed. And I don't see it being realistic at this point.
because all the issues that were raised were about the problem of getting staff to work on the ferry and how to get them over here for the 7:30 ferry and.
Well, that's why we wanted to get a breakdown of what we spent at Seaward on flights and hotel accommodations. Previous to their living in the houses on the island.
Yeah.
And we don't have that information. Gary's getting it. But as I said, you know, he wanted us to think what'll happen if we didn't run a ferry. And I don't know how to balance the two. The other issue that had come up a couple times now is the issue of taller vehicles riding the ferry. And there was a rumor going around here a couple weeks ago that the policy had changed. When I mentioned this to Gary in the meeting 3 days ago, 2 days ago, whenever it was, he was stunned. Because he had negotiations with John King and Gabe Pendleton and thought, okay, we're not gonna change this policy unless we discuss it with the islands. It was not discussed with the islands. He did not change the policy. Now, this is being discussed by Vinyl Haven mostly, but our shore crew is in favor of changing this. Now, I'm not saying that that's a good enough reason. I'm not saying we should go ahead and do it. That's your decision. But this is an issue that is coming up. And it's not gonna come up right away, there's no calamity on this, but it's being talked about. The problem is that we have enough truck traffic. That if two tall vehicles go down first, it throws off the truck. And the tall vehicles don't pay, they pay as cars, not trucks.
Well, currently they're paying as trucks. So I think that is that to me is the issue, is that there is. Some operational differences.
I'm saying they shouldn't be. No, I'm sure
Yeah.
that you're paying more, but I asked at the line crew today.
So line crew, just so I'm confirmed, that's the guys on the road, not on the boat.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I asked them today and they said the policy has not been changed. That if your truck is under 20 feet and has four wheels, it's a car. And you shouldn't be getting charged more. And Jerry was absolutely shocked that I brought this up.
Alright, I'll do more investigation into. It tomorrow when I have to buy a ticket.
What about the height? Yeah, I mean, is that,
Well, that's a policy that's gonna have to be changed. The leadership has to come from you guys, from the ferry service. All I can tell you is that this issue is being discussed. And
My issue with it is that the way that they've handled it, they tried to handle it under tariff 10. Right, we're under tariff 11 now, right?
Right,
The
yeah.
way
I have
they
a
tried to
copy
handle
up
it under
front.
tariff 10 was that they changed the definition before in the final publishing of the tariff, they had changed the definitions in a way that was not published in public comments. So you had no time to prepare if you fell within this category. And at that time, Gabe Pendleton and I had a conversation with Bill Geary just like a day before the tariff went into place, and they recognized that they did not follow statutory process, and they removed the language. Tariff 11 came along and they made a different language change, but it had the same effect from at least how people in the ticket booth and in lines had interpreted it, and there was a lot of discussion. And I mean, I think friendly discussion. I mean, I think everybody in the ticket booth was very friendly, and I think looking to the front office for answers. And so I would love to, and I'll try to find out tomorrow who they were trying to get answers from, because I kind of. Something doesn't necessarily add up to me yet about the process, and I completely understand the reasoning behind making the change in definition. But I stand by the fact that it needs to be published ahead of time, and it needs to follow the decision-making process.
yeah, I mentioned that to Gary and he's completely on board with that idea.
Yeah.
At least that's what he told me.
Yeah.
And I don't know how the rumor got started in Lincolnville, Islesboro, wherever, that there was a change, because there wasn't. And,
Well, the language in this tariff did change.
okay,
Yeah,
but the policy about charging hadn't changed. I don't know, I did ask about it at the meeting and that's what I was told.
So the issue here is that four wheels and the car length vehicle that is much taller should be paying more. Is that the idea?
Well, that's being discussed, and it's, like I said, Vinyl Haven is at the point where they don't want to accept reservations for tall vehicles. Because they'll lose a couple trucks right there, if I understand it right, they were the ones that brought this up at the meeting. And, all I'm saying is, this board has to discuss it and come up with a recommendation. At some point, there's no need now, about the word change, I don't know what to say. But the policy change should not have changed.
Define as tall.
yeah,
What's that?
I was just trying to pull up, does anybody have
I'm just wondering if you could clarify what the current policy is and what they want to change it to, or what the
Well,
discussion
the
is.
current policy is that if vehicle's under 20 feet long and has four tires, it's a car.
Okay.
And it gets a car ticket. And if it's, whether it's too tall to go down the side lanes or not.
I see.
And the Vinyl Haven recommendation was that if a car is too tall to go down the side lanes, then it ought to be charged as a truck. Now, that's just a recommendation at this point, the policy hasn't changed. And I don't think it's gonna change anytime soon. But it's being discussed.
Why shouldn't it change?
What's that?
Who's against changing it? Why shouldn't it change?
You change. from
Oh, it
meeting-
shouldn't change because it's gotta go through a policy review. Whatever the word Chase mentioned was, it's gotta be discussed by everybody involved and agreed upon before it gets changed. That's the point, and
Yeah, so the weird thing that they changed in, and this is getting a bit into the weeds, so we don't, I think. Whether we change it in future tariffs is fine, but they need to not change tariffs definitions without going through the process. And what they added this time was, well, vehicle includes automobiles, station wagons, vans, minivans, pickup trucks, golf carts, forklifts, riding lawnmowers, small garden tractors, and all-terrain vehicles. Blah, 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 with an overall 4 tires or less with an overall length of 20 feet or less, excluding motorcycles. Vehicles with 4 wheels or less that are 20 feet or less and are not one of the vehicle types listed above will be assessed the appropriate per foot charge for their length. That's what they added, which is causing the confusion. So if you have a truck, a 20-foot box truck that is not considered a minivan or a van like that, it's a gray area that has caused a lot of.
But weren't they charging by the foot anyway? Is that not why they go up there and measure?
Not if it's 20 feet or less.
They don't
20
measure the
less.
cars, they measure
Just
trucks. that are
trucks.
long.
20 feet or less with 4 tires.
So, and you're saying that if you added into that any, I don't know what the average height of a car is, like 10 feet. If it was more than that, you'd have to pay as a truck. That's where you'd have to go through this whole.
the suggestion coming from Vinyl Haven is that if they have to go down the center lane,
Yes, no, I
they get
understand,
charged as a truck.
and that sounds perfectly reasonable. to me.
Well, but that's, okay, but to go back to Shay's point, that hasn't been decided yet, it does need to go through the administrative process, and the policy should not have changed
Right.
at this
And
point.
yeah, and I guess the other issue that I have a little bit in how we, I mean, we can split hairs on definitions, but is the argument, at least the first time they did this unsuccessfully, they basically said like the center aisle is premium parking.
Right,
And I think, I would imagine that in the summertime, there would be a lot of people that would be willing to pay for premium parking on the ferries to not have to go down the sidelines. And I think that that is a precedence that is a very dangerous, is a very slippery slope to go down. So that is the kind of counter.
it's even just how do you
They'll just have to be
effectuate, how do you do that? I mean, you're asking the person at the head of the line to make these determinations. But what I don't understand is why don't, instead of this voluminous list of different kinds of vehicles, why don't you just have a dimension? 20 feet, but if it's more than 12 feet high, it's a truck. Why can't we do that?
Well, because there's a lot of people who have non-designated truck vehicles that, you know, are not having to be charged at this point. It has
And then
no-
bang, that's wrong.
Well, and that's what we need to discuss, so.
Yeah.
I think
So,
we
I
should
think-
move on.
Yeah, it's an issue that is obviously going to be coming up in future tariff discussions, but just, it's an FYI that it's something that there is inconsistency and confusion in the tariff language that has been published.
I think Chiefs.
I got it, I agree with
And
it.
I just,
This will-
that this list of different kinds of vehicles is irrelevant. It's the question is, what is the dimension that doesn't fit down the side?
So speaking as the guy that says go left or right, I can tell you there are a lot of people that go, oh, can I go down the center?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
If you have a New Jersey license plate, you're definitely not going
Okay.
there.
I vote in favor of that.
I
And
I have a list of the main legislature things, but I think y'all know them. LD 841, the results of the emergency services under the Islands passed and signed. LD 21231, requiring the ferries to sleep on the islands, passed and signed on June 12th.
Yes.
LD 1731, a bill to increase the influence of the advisory board passed but was vetoed. So that will not happen.
I was gonna say, that passed?
Why did Janet veto it?
Yeah.
You'd have to ask her.
I
I
think,
think
oh,
I
because-
will.
Because her commissioner was very much against it.
yeah, I bet. Mhm.
Well, they're all lame ducks.
Did they issue a statement? Did she issue a statement?
There was a letter that accompanied her veto that explained why. It basically said she wasn't comfortable with giving. That the advisory board definition was advisory only and didn't want to incur additional responsibilities without fiscal.
I would,
Basically, it's our money. You can advise us, you can't decide for us.
I would have thought Hannah would have weighed in on that one.
I imagine there were lots of voices in the soup.
That's it for me.
Great.
I just have
Thank
one
you.
more question here. Has anybody said anything about Plan B about replacing the Maggie Smith?
Okay.
Is
No,
that
nobody
off
said
the table?
anything about it. I mean, the bid was rejected.
No, I know.
I think that all the funds for it probably have dried up at this point.
I see.
And so
So we're gonna stumble along with our aging.
Knock on wood, it's just.
We love
The whole thing about the 2 or 3 members of the ferry service designing the boat, to my mind, is just crazy. There's retired captains and stuff in the room that said, you know, that design was stupid. And they never listened to, they never got,
input.
input, never got a chance to have input.
Yep.
And that's gotta
I
change.
seem to recall that the original design for the Maggie Smith was done by somebody who'd never designed a ferry before in his life,
That would make sense.
many years ago.
Years ago.
So just, under old business, we also have a discussed increased ferry tariff rates. I feel like maybe we could take that agenda out of order so that we could discuss that now while Peter is here with us. Anybody wanna make that motion, go out of order? So moved. Second,
Lovely.
discussion, all's in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, let's discuss the increased ferry tariff rate. So this was just a carryover from last week that Melissa 2 weeks ago brought to us. To see if there was any, what could be done to alleviate the pain that the tariffs are having on year-round residents. I know at that time we had talked about, Janet, if we could have a list of some of the other programs. Do you have?
There's not really a list. I mean, I have general assistance, that's all that we have here. We also have, depending on what you would do, we have the money that, we put away for the emergency trips, you know, that to cover that $1,000. I mean, that's something you could tap into. I did, so there's a community fund, that's another one. And I did email Marjorie Stratton from Vinyl Haven and Rebecca Carmichael Austin from North Haven to ask them if their people there had come to them and complaining to the board or anything. And no, neither one of those, but Rebecca said they're going to bring it up at the next meeting, talk to the board's going to talk about it. So,
Is the ferry tariff increases at North Haven and Vinyl Haven comparable to what's?
well, they're more than ours,
More
I
than-
mean, because they always have.
Right,
But, yeah, and they don't have as many trips as we do, it's not like people can just. But Vinyl Haven, I believe, still has 2 ferries,
yeah,
does it go,
yeah,
you know, we,
there are 2 boats.
Yeah, 2 boats, one sleeps on the island, one sleeps on the
They
main.
have 3 trips a day,
watch out.
Yes, so.
On the back
yes.
of this is your
No,
ferry tariff thing,
I know,
that tells you what it went up.
Yes.
And what everybody else's is too.
right, I know. Thank you.
No, just that way you have her.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the question is this something that the town would like to create a pilot program for subsidizing a small number of rates. I saw his plan first.
Before we do that, I think that's potentially a very good option, given that there's not a lot. One of the elders that I was talking to today, former select board member, said, what about going to the Waldo County Commissioners and asking for a break in what they demand that we pay them, since we're not showing that we're having a hardship having to pay for the ferry. It's just having a conversation with them if they would do any kind of like relief or assistance, and what Waldo County could offer. That way it's not all just coming out of us. And so that was something that I was gonna, if anybody thinks that there's a shot at it, I'm willing to reach out and try to have those conversations with them. And they have more assistance programs that maybe we would fall into. I
I'd
don't
like
know.
to be on that Waldo County committee. Budget committee, I mean, that would be an excellent place to, that would. No one's, I know,
When do we have to know, when do we have to do the?
well, their
last week?
budget's not until, I think, December. And they have the hearings, but they have meetings going on.
But
Right,
I thought you have to be, we have to nominate you, and then there is a time when they're.
yeah,
Yeah, I
They
think they
go.
were just going through that. I mean, if there was somebody who was interested, I would certainly talk with, the clerk over there and see,
okay, if you wanna touch the water on that one and see if.
okay,
We can still do it, or maybe they're full and we can't, and then I can just go as
yeah,
a
yeah.
citizen. But I think yeah, I don't wanna overextend our town to try to help our town. But if they have other programs and everything else, and they just ask for such a large increase for Waldo County, that maybe if we can claw back some of it, it would at least help a little bit.
I like that option to explore before, I mean, I think, I'm not opposed to. Especially to inform future tariff increases, but I think I don't necessarily see it being a simple, I think it's an easy idea. I think the devil is in the details, and
Yeah.
implementation would take a long time, and I'm concerned, I know that people are feeling pain now, but I'm concerned about rolling that out at the time when people have the least amount of bandwidth to really.
Right.
Think through it, on the implementation side of things.
No, I'm with you.
You know, in my looking forward research document,
My.
mine,
Good, it's yours.
the ferry situation has been just one of the constants for 20 years. I mean, it's forever. And its impact on the local community. So one of the things that I've been writing down notes about is, how do we, in today's market, how do we offset some of those costs? Was interested, went to the open house for the new health center. And they're expanding their services, and they have, everybody went to that, it's quite remarkable, but the point would be that if they expanded services for different types of medication, other things, it reduces the need to maybe go off island. So the point is just, that's an example of things that perhaps we need to be exploring further to see why people have to go off. I mean, gotta go off because you can't stay here. But I thought there were some really good ideas there. And so the point is, the ferry service, the cost of living here, all this stuff ties together. You've talked about that before, Peter.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to do is, with this document to share in the next couple of weeks, is, we have to put a stake in the ground on some of these things and say, what are the options that are viable, like what you just suggested, but, and then take just one, and see if we can't get it implemented. As a, and then use it as a test case and then move forward. I think because it's just been a complaint, it's amazing. You can read in the sixties, it's the same language that we're saying today. So it's not new, but the point is, we always talk about it, but we've never been able to get anything concrete really. Put in place and take one stab at it, so I think that we're at that point, where maybe we should be doing that. That's my point.
I think that's great. I'm new to here and I don't know what the history is, but the demise of the island originating ferry tickets at a different price than the ones on the mainland. I don't know why that was scratched, what.
Called abuse.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
The Main State Ferry Service realized the system was being gamed, and in one of the changes in tariffs, they changed the definition.
There's a lot.
They changed the system.
There's
Yes,
a lot of,
perceived, yes.
a lot of technology out there that could address some of those problems.
Right.
But the other issue, which I discussed with John King, which I was told was a non-starter, but I haven't given up. If you look at the demography of people, the actual revenue on the ferry, who's using it most? It's the first ferry of the day and the last two ferries of the afternoon. And that's where you've got 120 people walking out of the ferry. And London, Paris, New York, it's called congestion pricing.
Okay, yeah.
You know, why aren't we charging more for the people from off island who are coming here to work? Basically for people who are pretty oblivious to what they're paying in ferry ticket costs. And it seems to me that that is a way in which it could be addressed.
Advisory board,
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think all of these, a lot of the issues that we've discussed really are driven based on the next tariff, which, well, it's unclear how
it's not
quickly,
next year,
right.
but you never know.
right?
It's
Yep.
a slippery slope, obviously, but. You know, Steve, to your point, I think absolutely. If we can figure out how to decrease the demand by people on the island. That's one way of addressing this problem, but it just seems to me so egregious that in effect, this whole system is subsidizing people coming to the island who are parking for nothing here, their trucks, walking onto the ferry at a passenger rate, and somebody else is paying their fees anyway. They're not paying it themselves. Their clients are.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's a challenging discussion, so I think.
So it sounds like a good first step. Appreciate the suggestion, Melissa, is for you to go to, in the immediate, to understand the immediate, to try to figure out the immediate,
I'll find out what assistance they have, what programs they have, what we can claw, scratch and scale to apply. And then also, the Walter County Action Partners. They have been begging to come out and help, and they wanna do the school drives, they wanna do everything else, and they just don't have the connections and the bandwidth is what it is because every time that they reach out to, hey, let us come out and have a talk with everybody, it's like, cool, like, November? You know, it's when anybody's available to meet with them, cause a couple times that they came out, anybody out here that can utilize their services are out straight. And so they can't make it to them. And so, but I think that if I can work with Kat and the commissioners and different things, I think that we'll be able to pull together more of a viable.
great. Sounds like a good first step.
See, I don't just bring problems.
Wait 2 weeks and you'll bring a solution. Wait, let's table this problem, right?
Let me vent it. Let me go talk to the old select board member. Let me come back.
Okay. Alright, sounds good.
That's fine.
Great. Anything else on this topic for right now?
Yeah, just that. In my personal opinion, I think the proper direction for us to take this to town now and possibly in the future. Would be more to compile, publicize, and make accessible the resources that you have at hand that are not related to us administering any sort of discount to people from our own pockets. I think if we, aside from our general assistance fund, if we set up some way to, like, some fund to try to alleviate the burden of ferry tickets, we're gonna have a madhouse on our hands, trying to determine who's eligible for us assisting them, who's gonna be in charge of deciding who's eligible. What's gonna happen when Babe throws a fit because he's sending
Yeah.
10 trucks over and JPA sending 2 trucks over, will we give Babe a discount because he's sending 9 and JPA's only got 2, but JPA's been doing jobs for the town, and Babe's been here longer, and I think we're already strapping up for
You
cash
could
with our transportation.
Well, but
industry
I
here,
would
or
think it's
our
just
transportation
half
producers.
or just, I wouldn't.
I
But
I
this
just
may be
think-
trouble, I mean,
I think-
you
I think
give a
we're-
discount,
I think if we start, I.
Yeah.
Hate to use this word, because I know it's not used all that often, or not properly. This feels like a step toward a level of socialism that even I'm like not terribly comfortable with. I struggle with paying the ferry tickets too, you know, but if I had access to resources and knowledge of the resources, I'd be able to use them. I'd be able to apply for those, and it would keep us out of this decision-making process, keep the animosity at a minimum, and allow us to spend the money you're talking about that we could possibly save from Waldo, on our own roads, or on
Right.
bettering our waterfront services as they are, or our health center services, so we can keep people from here in the first place. I just personally would be very opposed to us getting financially involved, even though we here in this burden, which I fully recognize and suffer from myself.
Thank you. I think that was well said.
There.
Any other words on this topic? All right, hearing none. We'll close it for today. And take the agenda back up in the order that we left from. So sea level rise update, I don't have an update. GZA is working on their 60% design and don't anticipate further updates really until we have that information from them in August. Any questions? All right, public safety. Anything on municipal building renovations in any of the projects?
No.
Okay, any questions from anybody? Thank you, Peter.
yeah, I Peter. Hey, look.
Keep up the
There.
good work.
All right, upcoming meetings and subcommittee
Oh,
report.
I have a, you don't know, you don't wanna tell them that some of the metal arrived for the building, steel?
Oh, that, I did see that today, I apologize, yeah, that's, yeah, I think.
Mark Loulette called Pete and said, did it arrive? And we live right, he went by our house, I guess, but I was asleep probably. So we rode up there, I was all excited. It doesn't look like much. Is that the whole order? That was gonna be my question.
I have no idea, all I saw was a picture saying that the building and then Rod's asking for the other 40,000 payment.
But we paid that.
I'm on the way.
Yeah, that's,
But
Last comments.
Just wanted to point out a new person.
yeah,
Whoa.
Must have
Most
been
expensive I have in the world.
I thought he was already.
Yeah, there.
Whoa.
Anyway.
He's got one, I want one too.
So some of the buildings on the island. Not all.
Anything else?
Nope.
Were you talking about Rod from Northport Builders?
I was.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying.
yes.
Upcoming meetings and subcommittee reports, we've got a planning board meeting on July 14th. Is that Harbor on the 17th? I can't.
That is Harbor,
Her eyes are great.
at Energy on the 8th. IAA on the 15th.
Rothschilds, that would be a good spot.
My name is Peter.
I know, but he answers to it too, so that's how come I've decided
Oh, I
to go with last names. And I said Peter. and he didn't
Peter
answer.
R.
Peter,
Okay,
that would be a good spot to look. You were asking about the committees
Yeah.
and stuff like that. All of them are listed up there too.
No,
Oh, I
And so I have to take I take a picture of it mostly, but I remember which ones I have to go to. That was before we all got sat down. I just remembered, I'm gonna forget.
I've gone to every meeting that I agreed to,
And I think you went to one you didn't have to go to.
Well-
Did you?
Actually, the one thing that happened is that. I went to the Islesboro Sustainable Economic.
I see.
Stuff, and I said, I'm just here ex officio, and Roger Annan said, no, you're not, you're on this committee, because apparently there was a special. Deal where the select board person was actually on the committee. And immediately,
We got him signed up with
Brian
that.
Jones told me I was supposed to do something, and I said, no way. You know?
But you're going to
I'm
remain
going.
on the committee.
I'm gonna do it,
Okay,
and we'll figure out what to do with
Well done.
Wilbur Sloan.
Oh,
Anyway,
alright.
actually, there is a great deal of substance there that has to do with both of the island markets. I mean, the island market and Turkey's, and I think these are fundamental, important issues that are going to take months, if not years, to resolve. But we all know how important it is to have retail stores on the island 24.
maybe they wanna buy ferry tickets.
What's that called? Those stores,
Well,
they do whatever they want, right?
Alright, anything else on meetings and subcommittee reports?
No.
Alright, town manager report, Janet.
All right, I've been on vacation, so I don't have a lot of news for you. I've given you the energy committee minutes from April 8th and May 6th. We discussed the ferry rate. There's a handout that Carrie had passed me when I got in here, that Harriet Baring mentioned about the technical assistance application. And I included for people who did not go or weren't able to attend the open house for the health center. There was a neat sign that I think Lauren Bruce and Jennifer, I believe, had made up the constellation of stars who contributed to the creation of the new health center building. A lot of names and broken down and
Well done.
well done, very nice. And I think the big one's in the health center somewhere, but someone had given me a reduced one, which is nice, and so I copied it for you just to have.
I thought it was just so impressive, the whole thing, the tour, the new
know.
facility. If you wanna see how this community has been effective at coming together.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Shay did a great job speaking and Laura.
Well done.
At the ribbon.
Yeah, I love those suits. I guess they're in business. I think they were gonna open up
Yeah,
Friday.
Right.
On vacation, so I did hear, they were struck by lightning somewhere out here in the well. Something happened and they didn't have water on Saturday, so they were calling Pete. We were at a memorial service. And the key to get to that door, you go outside the back of the building to get into the door where the pump room is.
good.
Key wasn't working, so they called Pete, he went down, he tried, he couldn't do it, then Owen and Chris Bates took pliers and turned the key, and I got the door open and went in, and he had talked to some engineer and said, push this and that, and they did, and I got the water out.
Well, to Steve's point, I think any additional services we can offer there would address more of our needs. Please let us know.
Any questions for Janet?
Oh, and there was another open house July 12th.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of people comment on. Cut back on the East Shore Drive, and we had hired some company to do that. Not East Shore, West Shore Drive.
Oh, well,
Did that happen?
no, cause he bailed,
What was gonna happen there?
Okay, so
so I got to. Find a time with Jordy and. Tom and Nathan we'd have to close the road, by sections, so they didn't wanna do it in the summertime. But,
Well-
something we'll talk about.
This is to pave it
No, cut, trim back.
There's, you know,
I
people are complaining their cars are getting, not the trucks anymore, it's people with their cars are complaining that their cars are getting scratched because. The stuff has grown out, I was gonna take my generator and hedge trimmers and just start.
Let's do it. I'll go with.
Maybe we'll get a. Alright,
Yeah, but it's dangerous. That's what I'll hear from my public work. And it is. I mean, it's people fly through there, I know, but,
okay, well,
Well, I think if we wanna do a major project, I mean, last time we thought we had somebody who was gonna come in and do it for, I think, a number of reasons, it didn't work out. But I think, you know, probably the proper way for us to handle it is to put out a formal bid to do the work if it's not something that Public Works feels comfortable doing and, you know, and send it out. And I know, I have seen some pretty simple bid applications for that kind of project that I'm happy
Oh, yeah.
to send.
cause I think it's a mile. I think that road is a mile.
yeah, I mean,
We
I
talked
drove
about-
down and I'll go back down, but I was like, literally gonna. Put my generator on my trailer and just go down there and just,
Well, I've driven down there too and it didn't bother my car, but I have not met someone, but if you should have to meet someone.
At the wrong
roads narrow. Yeah,
yeah, I'm just gonna leave the stuff. But anyway, alright, but
but I
we
will,
should- that's something that if something falls through, we should be proactive in. Addressing it and getting it done, because I've told people, oh, they got a company. Talked to Dave, he said, well, they're getting their equipment sharpened and they're gonna be, you know, and then now I hear. And, you know, it's a month later,
yeah, well,
So-
it was a short notice to us, so
okay,
that just happened 10 days ago, maybe.
Okay.
so. But I will put it out to bid, cause I know,
yeah, and do us like a 7-day. Like quick,
yeah, turn on like this. Ditch field.
Anything else for Janet? Any other correspondence? All right, next up is to open bids for the town septic field replacement. It looks like we have 2 bids here to open. Would anybody like to do the honors? Oh. I was looking this way, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna go with any more quotes there.
who was it, Tony Carson?
I wasn't here when they dropped it off, I would have said, put your
Alright,
name
so
on
this
the
first
envelope.
bid is. Town septic system received on the 30th.
I think it might be Peter Combs, I would say that. Very well.
You have, oh, this.
Were they all on time?
Yes,
Okay, bid proposal. This is Peter Combs, dated, cell phone, address, all that, lump sum price. Ready, Carrie? 44,351. Scope of work, shall furnish all materials. System, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so. That is, so one bid for 44,351. Maybe know how to get into that.
yeah,
That looks expensive.
Like,
Oh, it even has a
it's
tab.
fairly,
Oh, geez. Okay, second bid. John P. Applequest, APELQ, U, past T,
Yeah, JPA.
okay. 44,561,
Really?
I never.
and the first one was what, 40?
44,351.
So we're $290 difference.
Estimate for town, and he did a very nice. Letter confirming timeline, alright, but anyway,
Can I see the?
That was the, one of the conditions, who could start as soon as, does Peter have a date he could start?
well, they didn't all,
Was there, I thought that,
It's outlined on that.
Well, all right.
yeah, I thought it basically, yeah, I didn't think it said we had to, they had to give a date. It just said you had to agree to the timeline that.
Yeah, it just says that they have to be done by July 31st or August 31st.
Somewhere here I said,
well,
the successful bidder shall be selected based on the ability to fulfill the project in a timely manner and the cost deemed to be in the best interest. And
Yeah, so. I think,
Either of them has dates.
But that's what we're saying, the dates are whatever they say is sort of irrelevant, so they're agreeing to do this, they're agreeing to have it done.
right. So.
August 30th, 2025.
So I think we need to.
Yeah.
We,
I would move that we accept Peter Coombs' offer of $44,351. Second,
Could I just ask one?
I think it was second, and so we're in discussion tonight.
Okay, do we know anything? I mean, I've had some experience with that list, but do we know anything about their track record of doing this kind of work?
for
Are they,
Peter,
are they both perfectly qualified? Great.
yeah,
And they've both done work for the town, they've both helped out different things, there's not, in my own opinion, there's nothing that weighs, that
negative,
means weighs scales
Right.
one way or another, other than the price. I see them both as very capable, acceptable, and
Well,
positive.
they're gonna save $290.
We'll see, depends on, is there any further discussion on that, on the motion?
I would also just hope that we could nail down in a contract we sign when this would be completed by.
It says August 30th.
Yep, it is in the.
Correct.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I,
Aye. Excellent. It is nice to have two local contractors bid on a project.
yes, amazing, they're so quick.
All right,
Which makes me like, it's the right price for you.
all right, no other business next up, okay?
Yeah, okay.
why?
No, you call me.
Oh.
To make it
You-
Up right now,
Lauren.
Lauren, over there. Two different ones.
what is the
27.
payroll? For number 27, why,
First, warrant one of FY 26.
Yeah, there's an account
Thank-
payable,
I've been staring at this.
Thank you.
Myself, it took me ages to get there, but I figured it out.
all right,
And then it became clear.
I would entertain a motion to approve warrant number 27 and warrant number 1.
correct, number one, I don't know why that prints 12 up there,
Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, who made the motion? Sorry, thank you.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
I,
And this is the one from,
there should be two.
right, well, this is the FY 25.
Yeah.
One, okay, it just looks different than,
Well, because something
we-
happened with Trio and Brian was, putting in, he told me that, so I just printed their names below this so we could have it.
okay.
I know you'd like the sign.
Cause I don't see a second, oh no, I do.
Yeah, there should be.
This one
Oh
looks
my
like
god,
I
I
would have
made
used
too
to
many
see
copies
it.
since I got here.
Like blue guy. Yo. Would anybody like to see the folders? No appointments,
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, there is one appointment that came in late, groundwater. David Pellington sent this to me for Larry Hoder to join the groundwater committee.
He wants him? And Larry wants to be on it?
This is what David said, I've got the email, I should attach it to the.
So moved.
I don't think I ever had an
Second.
email from David Pellington.
those, any discussion? All those in favor?
I was,
I thought you were waiting on this second.
no, there was a second, I was,
Did Shay make that second?
Yes.
Okay.
thinking.
And I have no further comments tonight.
I'll try to send it to you.
Melissa?
Would like to say thank you to the Lighthouse Committee. On Sunday, we had the opening, and the tower, you can now climb all the way up through it. There was a great turnout, very wonderful celebration. The outside of the lighthouse looks beautiful and amazing, and it just made me very proud to be part of Owlsburg, to see all of the work that they have put in.
Great.
And congratulations on a wonderful opening. Great.
Pete?
To thank everybody who celebrated, the Seekmans and the Coombs families this past weekend. was well attended and a great sight to see.
Oh, great, thank you.
Steve,
Okay.
Rothschild.
Rob, like Rob, that's the guy, Rob.
I don't know,
Right, Rob. My house now.
It is if you say it now.
we need to discuss the future of the ferry parking issues. Granted, not the fact on the question we asked about from the attorney.
Well, she did answer back as in we could, do up an ordinance, is that what you're for parking? I think that's kind of. That was kind of the gist of it. And we did talk about this, like we both said the state, I'm surprised that the state would let. The towns do that, but.
Well, I-
That the state lets Lincolnville do anything down there, cause Lincolnville's been trying to have different things changed,
Yeah.
and with the McLaughlin thing, they told them no. So it's
I-
interesting.
My own sense is, it's not surprising to me that there's what happens.
Oh, well, that's, yeah.
Well, it seems like maybe what we need to do is to come up with a proposal for what our ideal parking situation could be on Ferry Road. And
But I would just say that I think this question of what, who the right for us to administer parking along Ferry Road on state land, I think that is a fundamental question. And it's an ordinance. I talked to Steve Phillips about this. I talked to various other people about it. As far as I'm concerned, the right of way is 50 feet wide, and where parking, all the parking that's happening is within that right of way. So the question really is just what is administratively, legally a way of establishing that we can, people can utilize what the ground that's within the right of way. And I don't feel confident to make that determination. And in fact, Stephen Phillips on the other side of the road was successful. Maybe because nobody cared very much, but he was successful in convincing the town or convincing DOT
A select board member.
to that his sight line from his driveway was being impinged upon. I don't think that is the case. A similar case can be made.
Yeah.
I don't even think that case should have been made on the north side of the road, but
But true though, he could not see coming out his driveway, the cars were parked there. And people racing through the ferry, but on the other side, it's a little different than.
it is totally different.
So, yeah, you will be approached about that probably, because he did send us all.
But I
an
think
email, but it's
until, and as if we can verify that in fact, there is no reason that anybody can give not to allow parking within the state right of way. Either because they agree to, the state agrees, or the town has an ordinance that agrees, or whatever. I think our whole way of moving forward on this issue is obscure to me.
Can I make a suggestion?
Please.
This isn't really the time for it at the end, at closing statements, and so we could add it to an agenda meeting, that way we could
give a chance for everybody to get up to speed on it. I haven't seen the email
You
that came
can,
through.
you can educate me. I'm not.
No,
I-
you're good. I was just,
It's
a
appropriate,
very good
it's
point.
it's appropriate to add it as a comment to say we need to talk about it at a future meeting, so I
Yeah.
think that's good.
and so,
Uh,
but just that way Carrie's notes don't.
what I'm additionally saying, and I take your point, is that there is key critical information unavailable at the moment, which would have a significant, if not a seminal, impact on this discussion. And we've asked Janet to approach the attorney for the town to try and get some clarity about this. And as far as I'm concerned,
I will find that email, the last one, and I'll send it to everybody so that you all.
Yeah, I think she answered pretty clearly that we can establish an ordinance. But I think, you know, we need to take the next step either to ask her to draft something or I think really in order to have an ordinance, we need to have. I think the area defined, as you said, the right of way, and I think. To me, I would feel a lot more comfortable in having an area defined that is not just looking at where the current parking is, but is. Forward thinking a little bit more rather than reactive to one particular response.
Totally agree.
I
So,
think that's absolutely appropriate.
And it's probably time to get the parking committee together.
You know,
All right,
all right,
this,
nope,
this is not really related to the purview of the ferry parking committee.
well, it
This
is,
is
It would
all,
be added to their ordinance, I would think, you
Yeah.
wouldn't create a new ordinance,
Yeah.
but I don't know, I mean, that's
Right.
something up for discussion too.
all right,
all right, motion to adjourn, so moved,
so moved.
adjourn and seconded, all in favor, aye.
I am not trying to rush anybody off, but it's been fun.
Can I just say, hold on a second.
I'm not gonna stay and hang out with you because I've got Amanda that I need to go pick up.